I'm Dr. Dave Janda. Welcome back to our combined series of Operation Freedom Briefings and Dave versus the MSM. I'd like to thank you for joining me today and thank you for taking all the efforts that you're doing to get information in the hands of those you know and love, even some people you don't even care about that much, but to get them on the right track as it relates to truth, facts, data, and when needed, the science, none of which you'll ever be able to obtain through the bought-off lamestream fake media. This goes back at least 8 years about a treasonous conspiracy. We've heard Tulsi Gabbard, our Director of National Intelligence, tremendous amount of courage to come forward with what she did, especially in light of the nothing ball events we had from Jeff Sessions and William Barr, and let's not forget Durham and Huber and the like. Now, she really stepped up front and center, and she should be given a tremendous amount of credit for bringing the information forward that she did on July 18th. A treasonous conspiracy. On March 19th, 2017, on this platform, on our live radio show, Operation Freedom, which some of you know airs out of the People's Republic of Ann Arbor every Sunday starting at 2 p.m., on that Sunday, March 19th, 2017, General Tom McInerney, a very respected individual and geopolitical analyst, came forward along with Admiral Ace Lyons, God rest his soul, and presented information on the treasonous conspiracy of where all this started from. And it started years before 2017. It started in on our YouTube channel, much to the chagrin of the syndicate, although they've suppressed people knowing about, and they've taken some of our videos down over the years on this. We have an area on the surveillance state, the surveillance systems. Historically, it shows exactly where all this started from, this treasonous conspiracy that Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard has brought forward. And it really started with getting information that Obama and Biden and Clinton and Brennan and Clapper and Comey and Mueller and Rice were involved in a ripping off of a system, a surveillance system that was used to monitor terrorists in foreign lands, to protect our homeland. They took that system and used it for themselves to monitor, illegally surveil political opponents, not just Donald Trump, not just General Flynn. Oh yeah, they did those two, big time. But also hundreds, thousands of individuals. They could monitor phone calls, emails, financial transactions, texts, all illegally, to try to get information that could be used against their political opponents. The system they used was developed by a contractor that worked for the CIA, the NSA, and the FBI. And the system was called the Hammer. General McInerney brought that information forward first time on radio and TV on our live radio show on March 19, 2017. Previously, several days prior to that, investigative journalists Mary Fanning and Alan Jones presented information on their website, AmericanReport.org. And in that article, they brought forward information on this illegal surveillance system. It's illegal that was turned to be illegal, called the Hammer. And General McInerney and Admiral Lyons brought it forward. First time, radio, TV. The blowback we had was immediate. It turns out years later, the Inspector General of the Department of Justice, Michael Horowitz, released some of the text receipts and transcripts between, those two lovely, Strzok and Page that were at the FBI. Remember those two? And they were talking about our interview within 26 minutes after it was concluded. And they continued to text about it later in the evening. And that next morning, March 20th, 2017, was the first time Comey came forward. It was kind of an emergent presentation in front of a congressional committee that next morning. And it's when they first started to outline to the public, not just behind closed doors, to the public, about the fake Russian collusion hoax. Yeah. They were panicked that word got out about the then president and his hench people utilizing that system, and they need to try to shut it down and divert attention over to the fake Russia collusion hoax. A treasonous conspiracy. My mom, the history teacher, I went through her files the other day. She passed away about this time of year, a number of years ago. And I was going through some of her files. I do this occasionally. And she had a quote by Cicero in her files. Very appropriate today. Quote, "A nation can survive its fools and even the ambitious, but it cannot survive treason from within. An enemy at the gates is less formidable, for he is known and carries his banner openly. But the traitor moves amongst us, amongst those within the gate freely." End quote. And that's what's been happening. Not just for 8 years, but for many years. That hammer system reportedly was initially commandeered very soon after Obama was installed in January of 2009. Reportedly, as early as February 2009, it was borrowed. It's a PC term. Stolen. For use against political opponents. And it's really the crux of the treasonous conspiracy that DNI Director Gabbard came forward about. You see, they used that system. They knew that there was no Russian hoax. They knew that. They knew that there was no Russian collusion between Trump and in 2016 or prior to that or after that. So they had to make things up. And that's where the Steele dossier comes in. They also knew through that system, behind closed doors, that because supposedly in July of 2016, Brennan, the then director of the CIA, told Obama, Hillary's doing this thing. She's creating a story about Russian collusion. How did they know that? Because they had the hammer and picked up her communications. Yeah. Which brings us to July 18th of 2025. We took a lot of grief in those 8 years. We were called conspiracy theorists. We were called whack jobs. We were slandered. We were libeled. All of us that were involved in this, bringing it forward. We were threatened many times. We were deplatformed. We were censored for bringing the truth forward. And thank God that Director Tulsi Gabbard came forward. We brought this information for 8 years to many people in government who, I can't touch that. I can't do that. Many people in the bought-off lamestream fake media. I can't touch it. Some people that now have independent media platforms that at the time were in the mainstream media, if you will, lamestream media. I can't touch that. No one wanted to touch it. It was nuclear because it brings down the entire system. From July 18th, 2025, a treasonous conspiracy. DNI Gabbard exposes Obama at center of Trump-Russia hoax. This is from Zero Hedge. Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard has declassified documents revealing overwhelming evidence, her words, showing how then President Barack Obama and his national security team laid the groundwork for what would become the years-long Trump-Russia collusion investigation after President Trump won the 2016 election. It wasn't just after. It was long before. General Michael Flynn, who has been a regular contributor and guest on our platform, stated in reviewing what Director Tulsi Gabbard brought forward, quote, "This is surreal," unquote. Going back to what Director Gabbard brought forward, Americans will finally learn the truth about how in 2016 intelligence was politicized and weaponized by the most powerful people in the Obama administration to lay the groundwork for what was essentially a many-year-long coup against President Trump, subverting the will of the American people and undermining our democratic republic. You know, what many people, I think, forget is, remember, this really suppressed the Trump 1.0 administration. All hands were on deck to deal with these lies, this Russian collusion hoax. They got things done in the first term, but imagine how much more they could have. And imagine if all their attention wasn't directed at this and could have been directed at other means. Maybe they would have had a better handle on people like what people were up to behind the curtain. You know, like, I don't know, let's just put a name out there. What Fauci was doing, Collins was doing, what Barrack was doing down in North Carolina, you know, with this, yeah. She goes on, here's how. For months preceding the 2016 election, the intelligence community shared a consensus view that Russia actually lacked the intent and capability to hack U.S. elections. But weeks after President Trump's historic 2016 victory defeating Hillary Clinton, everything changed. On December 8th, 2016, intelligence community officials prepared an assessment for the president's daily brief that the president gets every morning, finding that Russia, quote, this is December 8th, 2016, did not impact recent U.S. election results, and, quote, by conducting cyber attacks on infrastructure. Before it could reach the president, it was abruptly pulled. Quote, based on new guidance, this key intelligence assessment was never published. The next day, on December 9th, 2016, top national security officials, including FBI Director James Comey, CIA Director John Brennan, DNI Director James Clapper, gathered at the Obama White House to discuss Russia. Obama directed the intelligence community to fabricate, a new intelligence assessment that detailed Russian election meddling, because they knew they didn't have anything on him because they had the hammer. That they knew there was no collusion. But they did know that Hillary was working on her own little sauce to screw things up. You know, with her funding, along with the DNC funding, the Steele dossier, which was fraud. Obama directed the IC community, intelligence community, to create a new intelligence assessment that detailed Russian election meddling, even though it would contradict multiple intelligence assessments released over the previous several months. Obama officials immediately leaned on their allies in the what I call the bought-off lamestream fake media to advance their falsehoods. On January 6, 2017, just days before President Trump took office, DNI Clapper unveiled the Obama-directed politicized assessment, a gross weaponization of intelligence that laid the groundwork for the years-long coup intended to subvert President Trump's entire presidency. So he started circulating amongst the administration, started circulating amongst the media. But where they really dropped the hammer, pun intended, was on March 20th, the day after we let it loose on air, when Comey went in front of that committee. According to whistleblower emails shared, we know Clapper and Brennan used the baseless, discredited Steele dossier as a source to push this false narrative in the intelligence assessment. These documents detail a treasonous conspiracy by officials at the highest levels of Obama White House to subvert the will of the American people and to try to usurp the president for fulfilling his mandate. This betrayal, this is Tulsi Gabbard, all Tulsi Gabbard putting this on the line, concerns every American. The integrity of our democratic republic demands that every person involved be investigated and brought to justice to prevent this from ever happening again. I'm providing all documents to the Department of Justice, Well, let's hope it doesn't get shoved under the rug where they've tried to shove Epstein, right? And that whole operation, and Maxwell. And I am providing all documents to the Department of Justice to deliver the accountability that President Trump, his family, and the American people deserve. General Flynn weighed in. This is surreal. Here in America, the Director of National Intelligence, Director Gabbard, is now stating emphatically that a former President of the United States, Barack Obama, attempted a coup against the President of the United States, Donald Trump. This is why Tulsi Gabbard was attacked so relentlessly over the past few weeks and months. They knew if there were anyone with the guts to investigate the attempted coup, it'd be her. Well done and more to come, checkmate. And it wasn't just her that was attacked. This is why we have been attacked for 8 years for bringing this information forward. By the bought-off lamestream fake media. By some folks that are in the independent media. By former CIA employees. Once CIA, always CIA, number one. Number two, independent media. Some of these platforms maybe aren't so independent. Just look at the ones that came to us and said, wow, this is something. We got to get this out. And look at the other ones that said, oh, we're going to just make stuff up about you and this information. Tells you all you need to know. When this came out, I was inundated with a number of people saying, hey, Dave, you guys were on this 8 years ago. Here's my response. Imagine my shock. We brought this information and more forward in March 2017 when General McInerney and Amber Lyons that a treasonous coup was launched by Obama and company against Trump and many around him by using illegal surveillance and a platform called the Hammer. We were targeted and demonized. We were threatened for doing so. The guy who developed the Hammer was put under a state secrets privilege, which to this day, what does that mean? If he talks about it in public, he goes to solitary confinement in Leavenworth, no questions asked. It was the platform originally used to monitor terrorist activity internationally. It was then commandeered by Obama, Biden, Brennan, Clapper, Comey, Mueller, and Rice, just to name a few, and used to illegally surveil Trump, Flynn, and thousands of others' political opponents. Phone calls, texts, emails, and financial transactions. By using the Hammer, they thought they were going to get information that they could use to take Trump down. Instead, they got nothing. Nothing about collusion with Russia, so they made it up. They used the Steele dossier, which was fraudulent, which was funded by Hillary Clinton's campaign and the DNC. And they launched the Russian collusion hoax and coup to remove Trump and to remove General Flynn. Every single one of these people need to be prosecuted for sedition, for treason, for you name the crime. Because there's a crime against every American, a crime against the truth. Anything short of that is a loss for our country and its future. The other question I get is, why now, Dave? I mean, you guys have been talking about this since March 19th, 2017. You tried to get other people to talk about it, but no. Why? Why now? Well, one of the first things I learned when I went to Washington, D.C. in the spring of 1988, and my mentor was then Surgeon General C. Everett Koop. One of the first talks he had with me was, Dave, I want you to be aware of something. In this city, in this town, Washington, D.C., there are no such things as coincidences. No such things as accidents. It's all planned. There are no coincidences. Everything happens for a reason. Well, do you think it's coincidental that this finally comes out? Courageous move by Director Gabbard. But it all comes out as they were trying to shove Epstein and Maxwell and that entire criminal operation that involved intelligence agencies, not just from the United States, but two others that I understand from around the world, that they were trying to shove that under the rug. Oh, there was no list. Oh, there was no blackmail. Oh, there were no victims. What? Why is Maxwell in jail? Why did they in 2019 arrest good old Epstein. And you're going to tell me that he knew he was innocent, but he supposedly killed himself because he was innocent? No, the reason why I believe this came out now about the treasonous conspiracy, I think it's directly related to the fact that they needed to try to divert people's attention from what was happening with Epstein or not happening. That now it's a hoax. The president said himself that those who support that there was something going on with Epstein, they're buying into the BS. His words, not mine. He said that anyone asking questions about it are weaklings. I guess so. Now I'm a weakling. And he said all of us who have supported him in the past, if you're still thinking about Epstein and wanting to see the victims get some answers, children, that you're not my supporter anymore. I don't want you as a supporter. What? See, I think there's a direct correlation of why this is coming out now because of what occurred the 2 weeks prior. Now let's take you back a little bit even further. Let's take you back to an article that was written by investigative journalists Mary Fanning and Alan Jones back in May of 2019. Comey launched Trump-Russia investigation day after General exposed the hammer. FBI Deputy Assistant Director of Counterintelligence Division Peter Strzok and his supposed paramour, FBI lawyer Lisa Page, exchanged a cryptic, indeed coded text message on Sunday, March 19, 2017, 26 minutes after U.S. Air Force Lieutenant General Thomas McInerney brought forward the whistleblower tapes expose that had been written by Fanning and Jones and brought it over America's airwaves, revealing the hammer. The hammer is a Stasi-like secret surveillance system created by CIA, NSA, FBI contractor turned whistleblower Dennis Montgomery for Obama's intelligence chief, CIA Director John Brennan, Director of National Intelligence James Clapper. The hammer under the Obama administration negated every American's constitutional rights to privacy, turning the United States into a police state where the federal government was weaponized by the Obama administration against its political enemies. Late that Sunday evening, March 19, 2017, just hours after General McInerney's radio appearance, Strzok and Page exchanged a text message that explicitly referenced Dennis Montgomery and Montgomery's attorney. Only a few hours earlier, McInerney had referenced Montgomery and Klayman on Operation Freedom, exactly the same names about which Strzok and Page were now texting. McInerney appeared on Dr. Dave Janda's Operation Freedom, the broadcast from terrestrial radio station Wham 1600. The next morning, the Russian collusion investigation was born. Early the following morning, Monday, March 20th, 2017, FBI Director James Comey announced before the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence that the FBI Counterintelligence Division, where Strzok served as Deputy Assistant Director, was, quote, investigating Trump's connections to the Kremlin and that the FBI had no information to support Trump's tweet claiming that Obama wiretapped Trump. False. That morning, FBI Director James Comey lied to the House committee and to the American people. Comey was well aware that President Trump was under illegal surveillance because Montgomery had already turned over to Comey's FBI mountains of evidence confirming the existence of Brennan and Clapper's illegal surveillance system. On August 19, 2015, this is what's written by Fanning and Jones and corroborated, Montgomery turned over to FBI Director Jim Comey's office 47 hard drives. Hey, remember recently Kash Patel and Dan Bongino said, hey, we went into this room and there was hard drives and there were these files that were hidden. You think some of those hard drives they found might have been this and then all of a sudden this comes out with Tulsi Gabbard? You think? Yeah, coincidence. Montgomery turned over to FBI Directors Comey 47 hard drives that he alleged contain over 600 million pages of documentation from Brennan and Clapper's secret surveillance system. General McInerney's radio appearance set off a sequence of events leading to, within 17 hours, Comey's announcement of the FBI's Trump-Russian collusion investigation. By the way, Montgomery also claims that the FBI under Director Robert Mueller supplied the computers for Brennan and Clapper's illegal surveillance system that spied on Donald Trump. And who did they put in charge of that investigation? To investigate the Mueller. Right. Well, you got to give Tulsi Gabbard a lot of credit. She stepped forward. But I don't think it was a coincidence that she stepped forward at this time. The question is, why did she get the green light? Well, I think some of it is personal perseverance. Tough spine. She saw it, didn't like it, people need to know about it, here it goes. But I also believe one of the reasons why it wasn't suppressed is, I think maybe there was a conversation, meeting, interaction. People are trying to figure out why Donald Trump, who's a smart guy, can read a room like nobody else. But those 2 weeks of, Epstein, it's a hoax, and I don't want you as supporters, and you're weaklings, that's not him. I mean, it was him, but it not like him. So the question is, well, what's happening here? Why did that happen? Well, it could be that he did look at that list, and we all know it exists to some degree. Might have been changed around, but you know what? What my IT people have always taught me is nothing's ever really deleted. There's always a record of it on some server somewhere. Probably got to look at the list. And maybe there were big donors to his campaign or friends. Or maybe there was a little something on him in there. I don't know. Could be that he also got paid a visit by the men in black suits. And it could be that they told him that, you got to back off on this. Because if you don't, you're not just vulnerable, but so is your entire family. Maybe that's what led to this. That Epstein is a hoax kind of thing. We know that there were intelligence agencies, at least 3, that were integrally involved in the Epstein operation, the control operation, the blackmail operation. That's known. That's not conspiracy theory. It might be conspiracy, but it's conspiracy reality. But maybe that meeting went off something like this. We need you to back off or else bad things are going to happen. Because, there's some of your friends on that too. Or it might be that, there's so many people. It's so perverse, so expansive, this list, that it would bring down all 3 branches of the government. Well, my philosophy on that is if there are criminals in there and they were doing this to kids, our government is better off without that cancer. And if it brings down the government because you're removing the cancer, okay, but I don't think it would, because there are enough honest people around left that could make it work. But some people are saying, it'd bring down the whole system, and that's why. Well, so maybe it's a little of all 3, but it also could be this conversation that occurred where he said, look, you need to back off on this, or, more butlers or more friends are going to get exposed. We might even have some things we trumped up, no pun intended, and put in there to make it look like you were more involved than maybe you actually were. And, it might bring down the whole government. They might have used all 3 of those. But it could be a deal was cut where President Trump said, I'll try to shove this under the rug a bit, but you're going to give me something. And what you're going to give me is you're going to take the vice grip off of the truth coming out about the fake Russian collusion hoax, about Hillary's emails, about the 2020 election, about how I was spied on, not just while I was president, but long before I was president. And you're going to give me the scalps of the people behind that. The Obamas, the Clintons, the Brennans, the Clappers, the Rices, the Comeys, the Muellers. You're going to give me all of them. And I'll try to shove some things under the rug. I don't know if I'll be successful. Maybe I won't. But I'll give it a try. Which might explain the Epstein's a hoax. The I don't want you as supporters anymore. You're all weaklings. Don't buy into the BS. Because he had campaigned about this for 2016 and 20 and 2024, right? 180. Maybe that's why. Keep it in the back of your mind as this all plays out. Stephen Miller stepped up. Director Gabbard has exposed the startling depths of a seditious coup against the Republic. The forces behind this coup have done and will do anything to protect their grasp on illegal and illegitimate power. Do not underestimate their capabilities or depravities, but we are stronger. James Wood, the actor who actually does a lot of really good political commentary, stated, now that the evidence has finally seen the light of day, hammer time, the Republican Party is standing at the crossroads. If people aren't arrested in handcuffs and tried in courts of law, the GOP is dead. If, however, the DOJ does their duty, the Democrats are likewise finished. Remember, one political party in Washington, I've always told you this, the Republicans, owned and operated by a criminal syndicate. Yeah, the criminal syndicate is behind all this stuff. Not conspiracy theory, conspiracy reality. So what do? Number one, I think you're going to see Tulsi Gabbard. I don't know how much faith she has in the Department of Justice based on what we've seen so far. I think she's going to keep dripping out information on a very regular basis to try to keep the heat on to pursue this. Number two, what can we do? We need to talk to everyone we know and love. Take this video, share it with them. They don't know 99% of what we just spoke about. Educate them, empower them. Then you need to call, and they do listen when they get a lot of calls, your members of Congress, the House, the Senate, the White House, your governor's office, your state senator, state rep. We know what the heck's going on here. We're wise to this. What are you going to do in your position of power to bring this forward, to make sure it doesn't get shoved under the rug? What are you going to do? Because if you're not going to do anything, guess what? You're part of the problem. And here's what we're going to do. We are going to run somebody against you in the primary so you lose. We are going to talk amongst our entire community about what you're not doing. We might even recall you. Believe me, folks, I know people say, oh, it won't matter. It does. It scares the living bejesus out of them. When they think you know something that could hurt them, all of a sudden, they change their position or start doing something when they didn't before. It is a treasonous conspiracy, but it doesn't mean it has to continue. And it won't continue if you and I do what we need to do. And that is this and not sitting on the couch. I thank you for joining me today. Until next time, Dave Janda signing off. Dream big and dare to fail. We are available 24/7 at davejanda.com. We do another 4 to 5 video formats shows a week. We have our archives for all of our shows, our live radio show, which is free. You can stream it if you want the podcast. It's part of the subscription service, 30 cents a day, $9 a month. Biggest bang for the buck in all the internet, along with our email alert service, all combined. Try it. You'll like it. Yeah, try it. You'll love it. It's a month-to-month sign-up. You can always get rid of it, but why would you? Because if you get rid of it, you're without a life preserver in this deep state sea of chaos. And we put you so far ahead of the curve, in this case 8 years, that it protects you and your freedoms and liberties. Join us. Until next time, Dave Janda signing off. Dream big and dare to fail. Thanks for your time today.